A billionaire's wife discovers the ultimate betrayal, but this time money won't fix what's broken. Watch this heart-wrenching tale of love, deception, and the courage to walk away from everything. The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as Victoria Sterling stood frozen in the doorway of her husband's study. In her trembling hand was a photograph that would change everything. Jonathan with his arms wrapped around his latest conquest, Natasha, the very restaurant where he had proposed to Victoria 8 years ago. The sound of Jonathan's footsteps echoed through the hallway as he returned from another business. Dinner. Victoria had stopped believing his excuses 2 years ago, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the pain cut deeper than ever before. "Victoria, darling," Jonathan called out, his voice carrying the casual confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. At 38, he was still devastatingly handsome. With dark hair touched by silver at the temples and eyes that could charm investors out of millions. "I'm home." Victoria stepped into the study, her heart pounding against her ribs. The familiar routine was about to begin. The confrontation, the weak apologies, and then the check. Always the check. The billionaire's solution to everything. Jonathan entered the study, loosening his Italian silk tie. He stopped short when he saw Victoria's expression, his practiced smile faltering slightly. His eyes moved to the photograph in her hand, and, for just a moment, something that might have been regret flickered across his features. "Victoria, I can explain," he began, but she held up her hand. 8 times, she said quietly, her voice steady, despite the storm raging inside her. 8 times in 6 years, Jonathan. 8 betrayals. 8 checks. Jonathan's jaw tightened. He moved to his mahogany desk, the one that had belonged to his grandfather, and pulled out his leather checkbook. The motion was so practiced, so automatic, that Victoria felt sick watching it. 5 million, Jonathan said, his pen scratching across the check. "Same as always. Clean, simple, and we move forward." Victoria stared at the man she had married. The man who had once recited poetry to her under the stars, who had promised her the world and delivered only heartbreak. "Do you remember our wedding day?" she asked. Jonathan paused, his hand still holding the pen. "Of course I remember," Jonathan said, setting down his pen and looking at his wife. Really looking at her for the first time in months. Victoria was still beautiful at 35, but there were shadows under her green eyes that hadn't been there on their wedding day. Her auburn hair, once vibrant and full of life, seemed dimmer somehow. When had that happened? "You said I was your angel," Victoria's voice broke slightly. "Said loving me made you want to be a better man. What happened to that man, Jonathan?" Silence filled the study. Outside, Los Angeles glittered like scattered diamonds, but inside this room something precious was dying. "The world changed, Victoria," Jonathan said finally. "Business got more complicated. There were opportunities, temptations. I'm not proud of it, but this is how successful men live. This is how we handle these situations. These situations," Victoria repeated, her voice rising. "These are affairs, Jonathan. These are betrayals of everything we promised each other." Jonathan slid the check across the desk toward her. The same gesture he had made 7 times before. "Take the money, Victoria. Buy yourself something beautiful. Take a trip to Paris. Redecorate the house. Whatever makes you happy." Victoria looked down at the check. $5 million written in Jonathan's precise handwriting. For 6 years, she had taken these payments, and for 6 years, Jonathan had assumed she spent them on herself. He had no idea where the money really went. No idea that his guilt payments had been transformed into something beautiful and life-changing. "What if I don't want your money this time?" Victoria asked quietly. Jonathan's laugh was cold. "Don't be ridiculous, Victoria. You've taken every other check. This is how our marriage works. I make mistakes, I pay for them, and we move on. It's a business arrangement that has worked for 6 years." "A business arrangement," Victoria repeated, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. "Is that what our marriage has become?" "It's what successful marriages are," Jonathan replied. "Practical arrangements between 2 people who understand how the world works. You get financial security, I get a beautiful wife who understands that powerful men have needs. Victoria felt something inside her chest crack and break. The naive young woman who had married Jonathan Sterling, who had believed in fairy tales and happy endings, finally died in that moment. "I won't take your money this time," she said, her voice gaining strength. Jonathan's expression darkened. "Don't be dramatic, Victoria. You'll take the check just like you always do. You're not equipped to survive without me, without my money. You're an art history major who hasn't worked since we got married. You have no skills, no career, nothing." Victoria smiled, and something in that smile made Jonathan feel uneasy for the first time in years. "You think you know me, don't you? You think I'm just another trophy wife who spends her days shopping and getting her nails done? Aren't you?" Jonathan asked, but there was less certainty in his voice now. "I spend my days teaching children to read," Victoria said quietly. "Children who have been abandoned, forgotten, thrown away by people who are supposed to love them. I spend my weekends at Sunshine Haven Children's Home, reading stories and helping with homework and showing 37 children that they matter." Jonathan frowned. "What are you talking about? You spend your weekends at the spa or shopping or whatever it is you do." Victoria walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Every check you've written me, Jonathan, and every single guilt payment over the past 6 years has gone to that children's home. $35 million of your money has built them a new library, a computer lab, a playground, and has provided scholarships for 12 kids to attend college." The color drained from Jonathan's face. "That's impossible. You would have told me. You would have asked for my permission." "Why would I ask permission from a man who sees charity as a tax write-off and children as inconveniences?" Victoria turned back to face him. "Those kids know more about love and loyalty in their broken little hearts than you've learned in 38 years of privilege." "You had no right," Jonathan said, his voice shaking with rage. "That was my money. My decision to make. It was payment for your betrayals," Victoria replied calmly. "I turned your guilt into hope, your infidelity into love, your cruelty into kindness." Jonathan stood up so violently that his chair toppled backward. "You're insane if you think you can steal from me and call it charity. I'll have my lawyers freeze every account you have access to." Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. "Go ahead. Because there's something else you should know." She dropped the envelope on his desk. Inside were dozens of photographs. Jonathan with various women over the years. Receipts from hotels and restaurants. Private investigator reports documenting his affairs in excruciating detail. 6 years of evidence, Jonathan. Every affair, every lie, every betrayal. All documented and ready to be presented in divorce court. Jonathan stared at the photographs, his face cycling through shock, fear, and finally cold fury. "You little bitch," he whispered. "You've been planning this?" "Planning what?" Victoria asked. "Planning to have dignity? Planning to stop letting you treat me like something you bought and paid for?" Jonathan moved around the desk, his eyes dark with a rage Victoria had never seen before. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you can just walk away from this marriage with half of everything I've built?" "I don't want half of anything," Victoria said, backing toward the door. "I want my freedom." "Freedom?" Jonathan laughed, but it was a sound devoid of humor. "You stupid, naive little girl. You have no idea who you're dealing with." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Marcus, it's Jonathan. I need you to make some calls." "Yes, now." Victoria watched her husband's face transform into something cold and calculating, the mask of charm finally slipping completely. "What are you doing?" she asked. Jonathan ended the call and smiled, but it was the smile of a predator. "That was Marcus Chen, my head of public relations. Very well-connected man. By morning, every major newspaper in the city will receive a very interesting story about Sunshine Haven Children's Home." Victoria's blood turned to ice. "What are you talking about?" "Financial irregularities," Jonathan said casually, straightening his tie. "Missing funds. Possible embezzlement by staff members. The kind of scandal that gets places shut down and people arrested." "You wouldn't," Victoria whispered. "I already have. And the beauty of it is, it's not even really a lie. $35 million in anonymous donations. The IRS is going to be very curious about where that money came from. And when they start digging, they're going to find that the donations came from accounts linked to you. Victoria felt the room spinning around her. Those children will have nowhere to go. Should have thought about that before you decided to play games with me, Jonathan said. But here's the thing, Victoria. I'm not completely heartless. I'm willing to make this all go away. The investigation, the media attention, the scandal, all of it disappears. What do you want? Jonathan picked up the check he had written earlier and held it out to her. Take the money. Sign a new prenuptial agreement that gives you nothing in a divorce. And never, ever threaten me again. Victoria stared at the check, her hands shaking. 37 children's faces flashed through her mind. Little Maria, who had finally learned to read. Tommy, who was getting ready for college. Sarah, who had been abandoned at birth and was just starting to trust again. If I don't take it, she asked. Sunshine Haven closes within a week. The children get scattered to overcrowded state facilities, and you go to prison for embezzlement. Victoria's heart shattered. She had underestimated him, had thought that somewhere beneath the cruelty was still a trace of the man she had married. But that man was truly dead. She reached for the check with trembling fingers. Victoria's fingers hovered over the check for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly, she pulled her hand back. No, she said quietly. Jonathan's confident smirk faltered. What did you say? I said no. Victoria's voice grew stronger with each word. You want to destroy those children's lives to hurt me? Go ahead. But you'll have to look at yourself in the mirror every morning knowing that you destroyed the only good thing your money ever accomplished. Victoria, you're making a mistake. Those kids are stronger than you think, Victoria interrupted. They've survived abandonment, abuse, neglect. They'll survive this too, and they'll know that someone fought for them, even when it cost everything. She walked to the window one last time, looking out at the sprawling city below. You know what the difference is between you and those children, Jonathan? They know what real love looks like. They know what it means to sacrifice for someone else. You'll never have that. Jonathan's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and his face went white. What? Victoria asked, seeing his expression. It's from the Times, he said slowly. They're running a story tomorrow about my affairs. Pictures, dates, names. Someone leaked everything. Victoria felt a cold satisfaction wash over her. Marcus Chen. Impossible. Marcus is loyal. Jonathan stopped, realization dawning on his face. You've got to him somehow. I didn't have to get to him, Victoria said. Marcus has a daughter at Sunshine Haven. Has had for 3 years. Did you really think your head of public relations wouldn't investigate where those anonymous donations were coming from? The phone rang, then rang again. Within minutes, Jonathan's carefully constructed world began to crumble around him. Clients calling to distance themselves. Board members demanding explanations. His affair with the wife of his biggest investor making headlines. You've destroyed me, Jonathan whispered. No, Victoria said, heading for the door. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up your messes. She paused at the threshold, looking back at the man she had once loved more than life itself. The children's home will be fine, Jonathan. It turns out that when you help people, they help you back. The board of directors includes 3 state senators, a federal judge, and the mayor's wife. They'll weather any storm you try to create. Jonathan sank into his chair, suddenly looking older than his 38 years. What happens now? Now you learn to live with the consequences of your choices, and I learn to live without you. Victoria walked out of the study, out of the mansion, and into the cool Los Angeles night. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maria, the 7-year-old who had been her first student at the home. Miss Victoria, I read a whole book today. Tommy helped me with the big words. When are you coming to visit? Victoria smiled through her tears and typed back, Soon, sweetheart. Very soon. Behind her, the mansion's lights flickered like dying stars. Ahead of her, the city stretched out full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. For the first time in 8 years, Victoria Sterling was free. Asterisk, don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart, subscribe for more inspiring stories, and share to spread kindness. And comment below where you're watching from. The end.